If you've visited a wetland nature reserve, been birdwatching at a reed bed, or enjoyed a lakeside picnic, you might not have realised that they were all once quarries. The mineral and quarrying industry is uniquely placed to enhance our environment, and in the past 50 years, the industry has been responsible for expanding habitats and increasing biodiversity right across the UK. Half a century ago, a lake or a pond at a former quarry was incidental, just a hole in the landscape. But the industry has embraced its duty to take care of the landscape. Restoration plans have evolved so that 5 decades on, the restoration vision is there right at the start, at the planning stage. Across the UK, wetlands, lakes, ponds and reed beds have all been created on sites of former quarries. Quarrying companies have used imaginative and innovative techniques to create fishing and conservation lakes, islands, inlets and wildlife-friendly shallow margins along the shorelines. Reed beds and wet woodland provide ideal habitat for waders, invertebrates and amphibians. Wet woodland and native trees are often planted on silt lagoons, with coppicing and pollarding encouraging wildlife. Hedgerows, trees and grassland banks are contoured around the former quarries with open water and submerged features adding to habitats for wildlife. Former quarries are perfect for building nesting banks for sand martins, otter holts and bat roosts. Breeding and overwintering birds make these former quarries their homes.
We've got a range of habitats on site. We've got the dry grassland banks. There are areas of wet grassland around the lakes, some quite significant areas of reed bed and aquatic margins, valuable species of dragonflies, as well as other invertebrates. We've got an area over on the west side of the site which has the former silt lagoons, and that's developed over time as reed beds succeeded by quite a significant wet woodland habitat. It's quite a valuable resource for this part of Surrey, which is quite an urban fringe area and quite built up. It's quite an oasis in the sort of like this suburban location, I think.
These restorations are great examples of the industry working to enhance the environment, to create a mosaic of diverse priority habitats. Over the past century, our wetlands have been neglected in the drive for intensive agriculture and development. And as the climate changes, flooding is an increasing danger. But quarry restorations can be part of the solution with dynamic and ambitious river floodplain management. At former quarrying sites, lakes, ponds, swamps, marshes, fens and reed beds transform the landscape into a network of habitats which link to larger rivers. Floodwater can flow freely through new channels via inlets, and networks like these oxygenate the water, trapping silt and helping to control pollution. The natural life of a river can work with the restored landscape, recharging the water table and preventing flooding. People, of course, are key to the industry's restoration projects, and every year 500,000 people visit the Cotswold Water Park on the Gloucestershire-Wiltshire borders, and the 40 square miles of 150 lakes and beautiful countryside are home to 22,000 people. There are 18 nature reserves, 64 fishing lakes and 19 lakes for water sports. Like many restored quarry sites, it's now a site of special scientific interest. This is a great example of how quarry restoration has evolved in the last 5 decades. Techniques have developed as restoration experience has grown and flourished. Ambitious restoration plans are now always there at the start of a quarry's life. Wetlands, lakes, ponds and reed beds created at former quarries often link in with the wider landscape, and the mineral industry's ambitious restorations follow the principles set out by Sir John Lawton in 2010 in the Lawton Review. Sir John emphasised that the recovery of Britain's wildlife sites needed to be expanded, better managed and more interconnected, and that their rich diversity underpinned our own survival. The MPA has recognised that with wildlife declining globally, modern development and intensive agriculture, isolated reserves are no longer enough to protect and preserve our ecology. The industry is committed to big ideas and large-scale action across whole landscapes. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change recently reported on the urgency for the world to create environmentally sensitive landscapes to combat global warming. Better use of land can contribute to tackling climate change, for example, through absorbing carbon and storing water. Land is a critical resource, and sustainable restoration of Britain's quarries is making a difference.
So I'm David Powell, I work for Yorkshire Wildlife Trust. I'm the Assistant Reserve Manager for Ripon City Wetlands. This was a gravel extraction quarry which was quarried by Aggregate Industries. We've now taken it on from them. We're in the management phase of this site now and have had it for 3 years. A lot of the stuff here has come in naturally, a lot of the botanical things, a lot of the scrub has obviously come up from ground source. When we get a flood here, a lot of different things are brought in through seed distribution. Obviously wildlife distribute a lot of seeds as well. A lot of our work now is working out how it's maturing, what's happening and where across the site and what we can realistically achieve through our management plan. For instance, some sections we're quite happy to let scrub over, other sections we're going to keep on working at keeping them clear of scrub for botanical value. Certain times of the year we'll be doing particular things. This time of year we've been doing a lot of cutting and raking, clearing the grassland areas. This helps spread wildflowers rather than just grass. It's got important botanical value for pollinators. We've also still been continuing work with Aggregate Industries in some of the lagoons to increase the habitat margin there. And it's keeping the site developing whilst learning what it's doing naturally as well.